Good afternoon and welcome our viewers to ARC's Fireside Chat. Today we will be talking about our election as an inflection point, the way forward for our systems. As always, before I introduce our amazing guests, I'd like to give a few instructions. If you're on a computer, if you look at the very bottom of your computer, you'll see a number of icons. If you go into either if you go into chat or Q&A, you can communicate directly with us. If you have questions, we will answer them live as time permits. Anything you would like to share, shout outs, please put it either in the Q&A or in the chat. We welcome it and we want participation from our audience. So we have two to begin with. We have two amazing guests. Our first guest is none other than the founder of ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and the current CEO and founder of One Community, Scott Budnick. In a few moments, we'll also be joined by Assemblymember Sydney Kamlager, whose incredible leadership I adore, and who was just reelected to the 54th district. But first, let's get underway. And Scott, introduce yourself and tell us, what have you been up to the last 7 COVID months?
Man, hey everybody. I see a lot of friends and family out there. Scott Budnick, founder of ARC, and so honored to have turned it over to my man Sam Lewis right here. So proud of Sam and amazed by all Sam's doing in his leadership. Last 6 months, you can imagine, I left ARC to go back into the film business and make films like Just Mercy, and then COVID happens and every movie theater on earth closes down. So I think everybody in our business right now are just trying to make heads and tails about what's going on, kind of shift the business a little bit. Obviously, the value proposition of what we're doing now is to tell stories that can move people and create empathy and change hearts and minds and find new voters and supporters of criminal justice reform. And that doesn't need to be done in a movie theater. That could be done on streaming services like Netflix and Amazon and Apple, and can be done on television. That can be done in a variety of ways. So just kind of pivoting our business to respond to this world, but still have a lot of really cool projects. Just saw our next movie. We're doing the Aretha Franklin movie with Jennifer Hudson playing Aretha Franklin, called Respect, starring Forrest Whitaker, Marlon Wayans, Mary J. Blige, alongside Jennifer Hudson. And the movie's incredible. And I think just like with Just Mercy and Represent Justice, it gives us a platform to do a lot more as it relates to racial justice.
Amazing. Respect. RESPCT. Can't wait to see the movie. For our viewers, later in the show, we will welcome Shaka Senghor, New York's best time seller and author, and LA County Supervisor-elect, none other than State Senator Holly Mitchell, who will come on later in the show.
Yes.
Bringing criminal justice reform to the County of Los Angeles.
Amazing.
So Scott, the election, even that's what's going on right now on a national level with the presidency count, is huge. But the election produced huge victories in terms of Prop 17, and we were able to defeat and push back Prop 20. Moving forward, in addition to Los Angeles, the likely mayor, or as we have confirmed now, George Gascon is now our district attorney. I'm curious, what's on your mind this afternoon?
Man, I mean, I'm incredibly optimistic. I went to bed on election night, I think with most people listening right now, like very concerned, very depressed, where it looked like a huge majority of our country was standing, not rejecting racism and bigotry, and woke up that next morning feeling much better about how things were looking like on the federal level. But I think what kept me optimistic and what kept me going is just the sense of gratitude I have to be living in a place like California, where it's very clear the will of the voters when you're watching Prop 17 win by 60% of the vote, when you're watching Prop 20 be defeated by 60+% of the vote. It's just a beautiful thing. And then you look at LA and you see Measure J win by leaps and bounds. Shout out to Dr. Ross and Patrice Cullors and all the folks that were there. You watch George Gascon, who was one of the only DAs in California that supported our bills to end life sentences for young people and give them all a shot at parole, SB 260, 261. And to see him now become the district attorney of Los Angeles, I think what message that sends to the rest of the district attorneys in the state of California, what message that sends to the country, and what message that sends to the world is huge. So I'm incredibly optimistic, incredibly hopeful that we can get to a system that resembles what the rest of the world looks like, right? Like you go anywhere in the world and you don't see sentences over 20 years, right? And we currently, like I always talk about the first kid I met in juvenile hall who got 300 years to life as a 15-year-old, but we do quite the opposite, right? We're not happy with a 25 to life sentence, then we tack on a gun enhancement for 25 to life and a gang enhancement for 25 to life. And then only after 75 to life do we think we've gotten our pound of flesh. And to do that to anybody, especially a child, is just inhumane. And the fact that we have a district attorney that's no longer going to do that is absolutely beautiful. So I'm incredibly optimistic, and I'm very proud to be living in Los Angeles, proud to be a Californian, and proud to be here with the ARC fam. Shout out to Richie and Initiate Justice, Taina, for all the work you also did on Prop 17. Shout out to my boy Esteban Nunez, who grinded, and Michael Mendoza grinding on ACA 6. Just a huge, incredible group effort, great organizations, great ARC folks. Shout out to all the ARC members that went up to Sacramento to go door to door on ACA 6. Just huge love.
Major love. And I think just looking at how we defeated Prop 20, I think it speaks to the power of advocacy when there's a collective voice and a unified voice. I mean, soundly defeated because we know what rehabilitation does, and we know what our communities need to heal. So definitely shout out to all the organizations that worked hard to make our state a better place. Although it's not fully equitable, much more equitable than it was a few days ago. I also want to shout out to all of the people inside that have continued to stay focused and that have supported all of the organizations that are doing this work, and know that all of our organizations have you in mind and that we're focused on bringing you home. Young people, women, our LGBTQ community, and the men that are in the system. Everyone, we want to see you come home and want to be able to see you actually be able to be your best self.
Yeah, I want to also give a shout out. Speaking of those in the system, I see Becky Blanco here, but just want to give a shout out to Becky's son, Pablo Blanco, who's up at Pelican Bay. Unbelievable young man, ready to come home. Such a changed man, such a beacon of light, beacon of hope, and one of the people that motivates me to keep going and keep doing this work.
Shout out, Becky, to your son. Scott, what do you make of the way that California has moved in a criminal justice reform arena? Like just historically, if you look at the last 9 years, what do you make of it?
Well, I remember walking into that Capitol in 2012, where Elizabeth Calvin and some of the Jesuits, Javier Starring from Healing Dialogues and Father Mike, asked me to come up and help with SB 9, right? For 7 years in a row, they couldn't pass a bill to end life without parole for juveniles. Just letting someone who had life without parole as a juvenile go back to court after 25 years and potentially get resentenced. 12 Democrats wouldn't vote for it. No Republicans would vote for it. And it failed 7 years in a row. And to remember walking around that Capitol and have Democrat after Democrat tell me, no, it's too extreme, it's too much. And after 7 years, finally on that day, being able to work with a bunch of ARC members to get those last 3 votes to pass that bill with 0 Republican support, and then to be able to do SB 260 the next year. And instead of getting to 41 votes in the assembly, which we did on SB 9, we got to 52 votes with 6 Republicans. And then SB 261. And ultimately, the first bill only helped 350 young people that had life without parole. And between all the bills that now had deep bipartisan support, it affected 26,000 people that were sentenced to die in prison. And so where we were in 2012 is very different than where we are now. And I'm super hopeful, but I become even more hopeful when people like Assemblywoman Kamlager Dove comes into the assembly with obviously her political skills, but just the way she lives her life and her belief system and her values, and continues to just push that forward every day and have it be contagious with her colleagues. And then even more optimistic to see Senator Mitchell come and give us our first all-female board of supervisors. It's just a beautiful thing. And Sydney, it's great to see you.
Great to see you.
You
Congratulations on your re-election.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Big ups, big props to everybody here too.
So Assemblymember Kamlager, could you please share with us, what have you been up to? Well, first let's back up just for a minute. Want to know, like, first, congratulations, and then what do you think of how California performed as a state, and what are your feelings about the wins in the elections throughout the state? But also, and I'm gonna say it, our new president that we're gonna have. What are your thoughts on those things?
So many thoughts, Sam, but at first, it's so great to see you. I believe that you and Scott are my brothers from other mothers. So it's good to be able to see y'all here today and to share in this. Excited about the fact that our country slowly and soberingly woke up and decided that we have to change the course of history and we have to change the dynamic of this country by electing a new and a different person to represent us in the White House. I have said this has been a failed experiment of chaos and dissent, and it shows that as humans, we are susceptible to those kinds of forces. But at the end of the day, those forces do much more harm than good. And so I'm hopeful that he and our new vice president have the stamina and the patience and the resilience that it will take to heal the wounds of this country. In the midst of this, we were dealing with a global pandemic that struck us, that struck people living behind bars and not, that struck our economies and our education system and our public health system and our way of life. And we have to unwind that. And then during the summer of this year, we had a reckoning with our racial history. It came up and it just bit us, in the face. And revealed to us how much work we have to do. And I think we tried to handle some of that on the ballot this year in California, but the results show that there is more work to do. It is unfortunate that we probably got Proposition 16 and 17 on the ballot because of the murder of George Floyd. That was an unwelcome and unnecessary opportunity in my mind, that the death of a Black man was what, potentially was the reason for us to have these discussions. But nonetheless, I think we have to have real continued uncomfortable discussions with ourselves about why we decide that people who have a criminal past, who have made mistakes, who made poor decisions based on their circumstance are somehow valued less than other people. Last I checked, every single person on the face of this earth has made a bad decision at one point in their life. But denying someone the right to vote, their voice, their ability to decide who represents them, even while we're asking them to pay taxes, just doesn't make any sense. And so glad that voters across California said yes to Proposition 17, and so glad that people understood the perniciousness behind Proposition 20 and said no to that. As Scott mentioned, the legislature slowly, maybe too slowly for my taste sometimes, but has slowly been working to chip away at the racism and the sexism and the classism that's inherent in our penal code. And so to push all of that back, to unwind a lot of that progress with that proposition would have been bad news for California. But certainly we, Prop 25 and Prop 16 show that there's more work to be done.
Thank you so much for that. Before, I have another question for you. This is both for you and Scott, and this comes from our audience, which we always want them to participate. It's an email question. And so in terms of LWOP, life without the possibility of parole, will there be the exact question is, will there be a serious push to alter LWOP laws for youth offenders? And I think they're thinking in terms of youth offenders that are above the age of 18. So sort of, I'd say 23 or 25 and below, if we look at the category based on the development and the science of the human brain. Your thoughts on that? And then Scott, could you please weigh in?
So, I don't know if there's an appetite for other people to talk about it, but I certainly have an appetite to talk about it. I sit on the Penal Code Revision Committee. I was appointed by the Speaker, and so we're actually looking at all of the pieces that make up the penal code. That's been one of the discussions we've been having. Gang enhancements has been part of the discussions that we've been having. Gun enhancements have been part of the discussions that we're having. Sort of how we come up with double base terms and find ways to multiply charge people has been on the discussion table. And then how long we incarcerate folks. And so, all of those things really have to be unpacked and discussed so that you're talking about why. Like, why did you do this? Was it because of fear? Was it because of some sort of xenophobia? Was it because of a misunderstanding of how the laws, why they should be designed? Or is it because you just don't, you don't like people or you don't understand? But the short answer, Sam, is yes, there are a lot of people. I mean, I never understand how people say I'm rehabilitating in prison, but I'm in prison for the rest of my life. Those are two sentences and statements that are incongruous to me. We should be talking about moving people out, getting them back into their communities with their families, and rehabilitate outside.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight. And just so the audience knows, like, that's also vitally important to the healing of our communities too. Scott, same question to you. Will there be a serious push to alter LWOP laws for youth offenders?
Absolutely. I mean, it's what we've been discussing for such a long time with Elizabeth. The path is a little bit more difficult than the ones we had before because it was put in place by a ballot measure. The only ways to undo it are either a ballot measure or a supermajority of our legislature, which the Assemblywoman knows how difficult that is, even with some of her colleagues that represent other parts of the state, or even some colleagues that even represent LA County.
Ding, ding.
To be mentioned. So getting to a supermajority is really difficult. I am really heartened to know that the Assemblywoman is on the Penal Code Revision Committee. I never saw the makeup of that, although I know our board member at ARC, Mike Romano, is, I think, chairing it.
Yes, yes.
And I do think if there's a clear mandate from the governor and the governor's office to the legislature, based on all of the research done by the Penal Code Revision Commission, which has Supreme Court justices sitting on it and people who are conservative sitting on it, if ultimately they recommend that there shouldn't be something called life without parole, the fact that we're the only country in the world that would do this to a human being and basically say you have no ability to transform, redeem, etc. It's like, not only does it go against kind of progressive values, but it goes against human values and biblical values. And it's definitely something that is embarrassing and a stain on our reputation with the rest of the world. So I think that the absolute best possible scenario would be if the Penal Code Revision Commission recommends to the governor that and gang enhancements and gun enhancements and these things that drive up sentences. Like when I went to Germany and all over Europe. I know you went to Norway, Sam, to know that anywhere in Europe, the largest sentence is 20 to life. But in the United States and in California, we give a 25 to life sentence to a child, and then we put a 25 to life gun enhancement on top of it. Then we put a 25 to life gang enhancement, and then at 75 to life, we're fine. Unacceptable. So yeah, I'm all in, beyond all in.
As am I. And just to note, Assemblywoman Kamlager also was on that trip to Norway with quite a few officials. And we all agreed, as I recall, when we were coming back, that model is something that we want to bring here, both for the people that are currently in custody and for the staff that work in systems. We actually saw correctional officers that were mentors in those facilities in Norway that looked at it like, this, my job is to mentor you and help you become that better person. And so that was an experience that we definitely shared that was amazing.
I want to give a shout out to someone that just wrote in the chat, Abraham Preciado, who had life without parole, and I think was commuted by Governor Newsom or Governor Brown, and is now home. Got to see Abraham the other day, but what a waste to keep Abraham in prison, and what an absolute asset Abraham will be to us out here, the community, kids in the community, et cetera. You're a hero, my boy, and I'm glad you're here.
Shout out to you. Thank you. Thank you. Assemblywoman Kamlager, last week, a lot of people don't realize this, but last week you held a meeting for the Select Committee on Incarcerated Women. I believe you chair that committee.
Yes.
And can you tell us more about what that was about and why is it important?
Well, it was about asking CDCR to answer some questions. This entire year, as we've been dealing with COVID, we've been hearing about the conditions inside of our prisons, and it was asking for some answers, and not just hearing from them, but also hearing from women who've been impacted by the system. I do chair the committee, and it was really challenging. It was challenging to see a woman, Miss Patricia Wright, talk about her experiences inside, a woman who is blind, who is receiving chemotherapy 8 hours a day while she was incarcerated, and by the grace of the pen of Governor Newsom was able to get out.
Yes.
Patricia, she looked like my grandmother. I listened to her talk and I saw my Nana. And I thought, what kind of state is this where we would treat someone who could be my grandmother with such disregard? And we forget that over the course of 30 years, from 1970 till 2014, the largest population growth in our correctional facilities have been our women. They've been our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our grandmothers, our aunties, and we have forgotten them. And they're leaving our communities is part of how we have seen the disintegration of so many communities. And we don't talk about that. So it was really tough to listen to Miss Wright and see my grandmother and my mother. And it was equally disheartening to hear our fellow panelists talk about women who are incarcerated now, who are cleaning out their cells with their sanitary napkins and using the soap that they have to purchase to keep their space clean. It was hard to hear them talk about their challenges with the grievance policies. It's hard to understand how, when you're already incarcerated and your space is already compromised, to then be put in quarantine. And I understand it's because of the spatial distancing, but we also have to recognize that mental health supports are not like they are on the outside. That fresh air and green space is not like it is on the outside. To access to, fresh produce and food and programming, even though it may be good in some spaces, is not like it is on the outside, at least in some communities. And we have to do better, because we're killing our women in these prisons because of COVID. So it just reawakened for me how we have to continue to hold CDCR accountable. You know me, both of y'all, so you know that letters went out immediately asking for some real responses. You know, we did hear that they were sort of allowing more time on the phones with GTL, but that's a cost prohibitive program, if you ask me, and we should be having real conversations about allowing folks to have cell phones inside of our prisons. So just, you know, I left, I was weary because I was so upset.
So just so you know, we stand with you. Let us know what we need to do. You already know, just let us know. Give us our marching orders. We will advocate, we will sponsor, we will co-sponsor to support our sisters that are inside, our mothers, our grannies, our nanas, so that they can come home. So just know that we're in this fight with you and we stand shoulder to shoulder with you. I know, Scott, you have to go. We only had you till about 12:30. Have one question before you go. To our incarcerated brothers and sisters, this is still a difficult time during the pandemic. What is this election can give them hope real quick? And then I know you got to go, and thank you for joining us and all the work that you've given to so many, to this work and to so many young people that I see coming home every day.
So do these videos go onto the prison TV? Do you guys send these in?
We can send this one in without a doubt. We have a YouTube channel, but we can definitely take this one and send it in.
Yeah. So I'll speak directly to those inside. I mean, I know it's a brutal time right now to the men and women, the young folks in DJJ. No visiting, no church, no college, no programs, a huge lack of all the things that kind of keep you focused. Please know that this election showed everybody that criminal justice reform in California is supported by over 65% of the population. That shows the legislature, that shows the governor, that a lot more can be done. And if you listen to Assemblywoman Kamlager Dove, you know that people are talking about gun enhancements and gang enhancements and life without parole and rewarding transformation and rehabilitation and redemption. We will be working our butts off. We're going to be working 24/7 to create more hope, to reward incredible transformation, to make the system just and fair and merciful. It isn't just me, it isn't just Sam, it isn't just the Assemblywoman. You have an army of people out here that love you and are fighting for you. And please stay focused. Know that that hope is there. This governor is going to do hundreds, if not thousands, more commutations over the next few years. People will be coming home that were sentenced to die in prison. We've already seen hundreds who were sentenced to LWOP come home under commutation or with an 1170D. So it is coming. It's on the way. I love you guys. I'm doing this for you. This is the only reason I do it. And it's been a pleasure, Sam and Sydney. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you, man.
Love you both.
Stay safe. We want to see that movie too.
Love you all. It's coming.
Love you, bro.
Coming. Bye.
Assemblywoman, so thank you again for joining us. Like you and our other superhero that's going to join at the end, Senator Holly Mitchell. But I want to ask you a question. So what are you most looking forward to in this session of the Assembly coming up?
There's, boy, I'm really excited. I think there's an opportunity to really talk about climate action and climate justice. I think there is an opportunity to engage folks on an economic level and really string together how economics plays a role in how we have access to green and clean space, to, obviously how we have access to good housing, to how we have access to good and quality healthcare, to how we have access to quality education, and then to how we have access to a criminal court system that is equal and just. So I'm actually excited about being able to weave economics into so many of these spaces, because it has been a disruptor for folks who are in the African American and in the Latino communities, who struggle to make it. And we're just beginning to have a reckoning with the race. And so I'm really interested in sort of weaving economics into some of those discussions so that we can get real. There's a lot of work to do. This pandemic revealed a lot of fissures in how we see people, in how we value people, in how we judge people, in how we heal people, and in how we support people. So I'm going to be rolling up my sleeves. I got my Vaseline because I'm ready to fight when we return, and make sure that we are keeping these things on the forefront. I mean, I'm very excited about the work that we've been doing in the Penal Code Committee, and hoping that next year we can roll out some stuff. I'm excited to reintroduce AB 2054, which was the Crisis Act, which was the first step in how the state can play a role in reimagining public safety, and how who first responders are, and how law enforcement handles first responder calls. I was disappointed it didn't get signed this year, but that's okay. So lots of things to be excited about.
So we got your back. Know
I
that.
appreciate you.
Always, and we appreciate you. I want to introduce, welcome Shaka Senghor, best-selling author. Instead of me introducing you, brother, go ahead and take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us, what have you been up to for the last few months as you join this conversation with one of our very own superheroes, Assemblywoman Kamlager Dove. Yes, I do consider you a superhero. Along with
No, you're a superhero.
I'm the sidekick. I'm the sidekick. Shaka, go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us what have you been doing the last few months?
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's always an honor to join Anti-Recidivism family. This is my family for life. And, anytime I can just join in on a conversation to support this incredible team. And Sam, you are a hero, as are many of the ARC family members and staff. I get a great deal of inspiration from this work. In terms of introduction, it's always weird to introduce myself. I think my most important job is being a dad to my incredible, 8-year-old son, Sekou, and just being an advocate for people who have been through the system. As someone who spent 19 years in prison, and I've been out for 10 years now and been able to go on this incredible journey of learning and contributing whatever I could in terms of my voice and my writing talent to this conversation. It's just truly an honor to be here today and be an advocate. And the last 7 or 8 months have been interesting. As someone who's formerly incarcerated, I've definitely had my moments where I felt the isolation, and I just want to say to all of our system impacted family, if there's moments where you're struggling to kind of process what it means to be at home, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm really fortunate that I do get a chance to talk to many people from the team throughout my day-to-day life, and we just kind of support and love on each other. I've been back in the creative zone a lot. I'm actually finishing up a new book, so I'm super excited about that. I haven't talked much about it publicly, but I feel like it's some of the most important writing I've done. And I'm so inspired, like, by myself. Like, it's the weirdest thing, but I'm like, I've become a fan of my own writing in this interesting way. But because I'm really sharing so much from some of the most honest spaces of my life, and I think that when this book comes out, it'll reach people and resonate with them in a way that's brings us closer together as people, and helps us think through what we need to do to support young people throughout the world.
Thank you for that, Shaka. I got a question for you. So as we're watching right now, the count is going on in several states that will determine who will lead our country. At the very top of our country, it's just like literally a nail biter, so to speak. It's looking good though. Every time I get a chance, I go look at the numbers. Fingers crossed. What difference will it make to our communities on the ground? What do you think? And then Assemblywoman Kamlager, would love for you to, so what difference do you think it will make to our communities on the ground?
I mean, honestly, to me, I think it's more of a, emotional, experience than anything else. To me, I always look to the people who are doing the work in the communities. And I think about, local elections more than the national election, because I think that's where the true magic happened, as we, have seen here in California with some of the propositions passing that reinstates the opportunity for people to use their voice in terms of elections. And what I hope comes out of this is a heightened sense of awareness of what it looks like to have people power, for people to really show up and vote and advocate for the things that they believe in. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to even reevaluate what does it mean to be united and care about real issues, and how can we come out on the other side of this able to have honest conversations. I think one of the saddest things about American society is that we run from intellectual discourse. And I think it's the one thing that's missing. Like, we get into these embroiled fights with each other without realizing that it doesn't matter who's in office. Ultimately, we're going to have to figure out a way to work together if we want to make the world a better place. And in order to figure out that, you have to be able to sit and talk and speak to people who you may disagree with. I think that the last, 4 years, actually, I would say the last 12 years has lifted up to, the American consciousness, the reality of race dynamics in this country. And, it's a scary thing to think that when these things are brought to the forefront, that instead of running to them with solutions, that we run from them out of fear and anger and just emotional fragility. And I think this is an opportunity for us to toughen up. I honestly think that the American public is too soft. I think that we're too soft in the sense that we don't have real honest conversations, and it's time to have that. And for those of us who've been in the criminal justice space, I think we know more so than a lot of people how important it is to have bipartisan efforts to get things done. We can't do this work solely based on one party. And I hope that we get to a space where we can say, hey, I disagree with you and I actually dislike you, but I'm willing to engage you in a conversation if it's going to create a greater opportunity for us to help more people.
Great. Thank you for that, Shaka. Assemblymember Kamlager has to sign off. I want to first say thank you. Thank you for being the voice for the most marginalized. Thank you for the work that you have put in. It's clear that we want people like you representing us all the time. So just know that, and I'll take this opportunity to speak for everyone else that's listening. We want you to continue to represent us, and we support you, and we are thankful for you. Last thought you want to share with our audience?
I appreciate you, brother. And, I had the good fortune of seeing Shaka speak at an event that ARC hosted, I think in Century City. We watched a movie and then had a really good discussion about the criminal justice world. So count me as a super fan. I was gonna say that, hopefully this will be the end of divisive and chaotic policymaking, and really sort of race-baited and fear-focused policymaking. And I think we have seen that over the course of these past 3.5 years. I also, just when you look at the maps, you still see that A, people are polarized, and B, people are hurting and people are angry. And so there will be a lot of work that all of us have to do, probably in terms of changing the tactics by which we engage, and recognizing that listening is a very important skill set that maybe we have forgotten over the course of these 4 years for sure, but maybe, to Shaka's point, over the course of the last 12 years. They say that the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. I certainly believe that, but I also think the most sort of feared and hated person in America is the Black man. And you know, we decided some years ago to entrust this country into the hands of a brother. And I think we are dealing with the consequences of those decisions that many of us made. So, hey, whatever, people got to get over that. But this will be a very important win, because look at all of the federal judicial appointments that have been made over the course of these past 3+ years. And those appointments are lifetime. And the folks who have come in are activists, and they have been focused in unraveling the civil liberties that we have, and unraveling our civil rights, and in figuring out a way to continue to suppress us, to incarcerate us, to contain us. And so I'm just thankful that hopefully the chaos that we've been seeing and the disruption that we've been seeing at the federal level with the courts will stop. You know, the Ninth Circuit was always seen as the last bastion, the most progressive of the circuit courts in the country. And as a result of this person who's been in the White House, that has moved into being a conservative court. So that's, you know, that should be alarming to folks. So LGBT peoples, our women, folks focused on reproductive rights, folks focused on what happens to those who are incarcerated. We have been alarmed during the course of this last administration. So my hope is that people don't have no crazy jump off between now and January, and we can begin to figure out ways to unwind some of those decisions that have been made. But to Shaka's point, at the local level, hopefully this helps us understand the importance of electing good governors, of electing good folks in Secretary of State positions, and in electing good folks to be AGs. Because the Secretary of State, they monitor the votes. They make sure that we're not suppressing the right to vote. And the AGs are responsible for interpreting the law and figuring out when to step in with a lawsuit, right? When to stop something from happening. And the governor has executive power. And those three positions have wielded power in strange and in pernicious ways in many states that don't support a lot of the work that we're doing and that you're doing, Sam. And so to Shaka's point, we should be being vigilant. We should be vigilant in how we are looking to support making sure that good people get into those positions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm a super fan as well, so we even.
All right, brother.
Thank you so much.
Love you, Sam.
Love you too. Let's continue on with this fight.
You know it. You know it.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Peace. Shaka, my brother.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So you said something that I really, and this Assemblymember Kamlager said something that, one, I literally had this same conversation about listening this morning with my sister, Shamika Gaskins, with our check-in. She's one of my mentors for those of you that don't know. And so one of the things she said is that we seem as a society that we listen to respond instead of listening to understand and actually internalize with the person we're speaking to. And it's almost a lost art, so to speak. And then to hear it again from the assembly member, like, just speaks volumes, like listening. And then when you said being able to disagree, like I see that as something that's disappearing. Like, we can disagree and you still my brother.
Yeah,
like, let's agree to disagree and be able to have that discourse without it turning into something other than that. And so just want to put a pin in that. You touched on that. If you want to go a little deeper in it, in 5 minutes, the next superhero will be joining us, Supervisor-elect Holly Mitchell, but we'd love for you to go ahead and go a little deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a fine line, right? Sometimes, people have value-based disagreements, right? And if your values are hurtful or harmful, I'm willing to hear you out, but it doesn't mean that we'll be able to sit across the table and break bread. But I think it is important for us to actually hear how people arrive at the conclusions they have, because we all have a very different lived experience. And I think sometimes when we get so emotionally embroiled in what it is that we want, we forget that not all of us experience America the same. And so even when you're talking about through the lens of racism, I think that's the easy thing to go with, right? But what it does is it requires us to really dig deeper. When you can actually listen, and you can actually understand why, somebody in rural America would see any, a politician as a bastion of hope, right? You have to understand that their lived experience may be different from yours, and this doesn't even just apply to politics. This applies very intentionally and very specifically to, like, the work that we do. This work can be very challenging. It can be very combative in ways that really isn't so much about what we've actually done, but more so about what people's actual experiences are. And I just try to be mindful of that when I engage with anybody. It's like, let me listen to ensure that I'm actually hearing where this person has come from, as opposed to let me listen so that I can beat them up in a verbal argument. And I think the more that we get to that space, the better we are. But the reality is, the reason it's so tough in America is because we are a country that is driven by entertainment. Entertainment sets the standards and the tones for so much of what we go to believe about life, right? You even think about, in the midst of all this social upheaval, most of the attention is pointed to and directed towards celebrities, right? Celebrities who oftentimes don't have the experience as, the women and men on the ground actually doing the work. And so what we find is that our obsession with entertainment leads people to turn to them for information, as opposed to turning to the people who have been doing this work for decades. And at some point that has to change if we want to create systemic change and cultural change in America.
Hey, thank you for that, Shaka. Check this out, brother. So Assemblymember Kamlager had to step off for a reason. She is announcing her run for state senate.
Oh, dope. That's amazing.
So that's why she had to step out to our listeners. She is announcing her run for California State Senate as Holly Mitchell, Senator Holly Mitchell, and now Supervisor-elect Holly Mitchell will be coming to Los Angeles. So amazing news, another one of incredible leaders in the state of California. So just want y'all to know that. Yeah, snap. And Shaka, want to ask you in terms of, you want to say something to the people that are incarcerated? We are going to attempt to send this in to be aired on their closed TV circuit in the Department of Corrections. Anything you want to share with them during this difficult time?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember sitting, in the cell and not knowing if I was ever going to get out of prison, and feeling that sense of hopelessness and feeling that sense of dread that this was my destiny. And then when I started going through the parole process and I got rejected a couple of times, I really felt like I would never get out. But one of the things that I never stopped doing is believing in my power to effectuate change, no matter where I was in the world, and to contribute something meaningful to society. So I mentored and I guided people who were on their way home and kind of gave them ideas and plans and suggestions to kind of run with. And then when my turn came, I was excited to celebrate that. And in the midst of all that, it required a great deal of faith that no matter what my past was, that I can contribute something, whether it was a kind word, whether it was some information, whether it was a challenge, whether it was being an accountability partner, that I can contribute something to somebody else's growth. And to me, I think the greatest freedom is being able to contribute to somebody else's interpretation of possibilities and hope, and really giving them kind of like the wings to run with. And I want to say this, like these times are unlike anything we've ever imagined when you're talking about a global pandemic and the outrageous outbreaks within confined spaces. And just noted that we're fighting, we're sharing stories with people to highlight this gross injustice. I actually just got off a call for a podcast, and we were talking about the pandemic and its spread inside, prisons throughout the country, and partnerships we're working on and people we're working with to try to mitigate some of that. So just hold on, hope, doesn't happen on the timeline that we're accustomed to, but if you can remain faithful and committed to the possibility of contributing something meaningful, you know that it can happen and it will happen, but you got to take that first step toward making it happen.
Thank you for that, brother. Appreciate it. And I'm certain the people that are inside that will see this will appreciate it. Like you, I didn't think I would ever get out of prison. Went to the board 9 times and didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I wanted to give something better to the world, meaning a better version of myself. And when that opportunity came home, I always promised myself that I would give back and fight as hard as I could for everybody that was inside. And from day one, I've continued to do that and have done it with you side by side. So I want to appreciate you. You see some of our staff members have jumped on. They miss you and they appreciate you, brother.
No, I miss the squad, man. I miss coming into the office. I can't wait till the world opens back up. I plan to be down there, and anything that I'm doing, I'm always thinking about how can I include ARC, whether it's raising funds or whether it's just sharing space. And, I've extended an offer to several staff members whenever they want to get out of their house and just come work. I got a workspace that they can use in the back with Wi-Fi and just to commune. Like, these are difficult times and I'm mindful of that, and just want everybody to know I'm always here to support as a friend and as a brother and as a colleague in his work.
And we miss you, brother. We love you. We got to celebrate that 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, man.
We did something but we got to do something better than that when this whole COVID thing is over with. I'm really hoping that Senator Holly Mitchell will be able to join so we can congratulate her and get her thoughts. But until she does, I want to ask you, what did you think when you saw Prop 17 pass for people to be able to vote once they were released from being incarcerated?
Man, I was beyond excited, right? And it's so interesting that I took such personal stock in that. And, when I got paroled in Michigan. And one of the things that Michigan got right is as soon as you're released from prison, your right to vote is restored. And I got a chance to vote for President Obama in the 2012 election. And I remember that day, I'll never forget it. Like, the polling station was right across the street from where I lived. I lived in this townhouse on a street called Marvin Gaye on the west side of Detroit. And it was an old housing project that they had converted into these townhouses and condos. And the voting poll was in the senior citizen building across the street. And I remember just watching all those beautiful people wrapped around the corner and then going and joining them and having conversations. And I mean, it was people from every walk of life. It was people on walkers. It was people, who was enjoying libations before they voted. And, and it was just a beautiful moment of being able to cast a ballot and knowing that I can contribute my voice to, potentially changing something in the country. And so, when I saw that passed, and I've been pushing hard, on people here in California through my network, I was elated because it is senseless that we can pay taxes in this country and not have our voices heard. So to know that that's been, passed and that people now can walk out and know that they can contribute in different ways, and especially on local elections that impact the quality of their day-to-day lives. It's a great day for us. It's a really amazing thing. And I'm super thankful for the work that ARC has done, along with all of our other colleagues in this work, Cut 50, and, just the many women and men who have stepped up and said, hey, this thing has got to pass and we got to make a difference and to make a change. So, thank you again for leading that work and to the whole team. And I see Z and Laura and Dion on the chat. I miss y'all so much. I just really miss being in the office and just vibing and catching up. So hopefully I can see all y'all soon.
Absolutely. So Senator Holly Mitchell, thank you for that, brother, first and foremost. Senator Holly Mitchell is running a little bit late, so we're going to go a little bit longer today. But also just want to echo what Scott said. this was a collective effort, but definitely want to shout out organizations like Initiate Justice, Taina, want to shout you out, Michael and Esteban. Esteban, the work that you did in the Senate to get ACA 6 off the floor, want to shout you out. Like, this was a collective effort of
Absolutely.
people and organizations. And so want to really just get everybody to understand the power of advocacy in the state of California is, like, I think, like no other state. And if we're united in changing something, with elected officials like the Assemblywoman that was just here, like the senator who is now a supervisor or will be supervisor of the 2nd District in Los Angeles, and so many others, when we're united, there's nothing that we can't change and make better for our communities. California is in a unique position to really, really change how criminal justice reform is done, and police accountability. But we have to be united together in order for us to be able to really push forward on those changes. So I want to shout out those different organizations. Dorsey doing work with All of Us or None, Young Women's Freedom Center. There's so many organizations that got together and did this work. Susan Burton, New Way of Life. I want to shout y'all out. Like, this was a collective effort to make a change. Jay Jordan, California for Safety and Justice. Nate Williams, all of you guys are men and women, people. We're all part of this fight, and united, there's nothing that we can't change. And we really, really need to recognize that, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. Sam, I agree with you. I want to shout out something to Dorsey and All of Us and None of Us, and he may not remember this, but the first week I got out of prison in Detroit was during the week that the U.S. Social Forum was happening. And a good friend of mine named Yusuf Bunchy Shakur invited me down to speak. I literally hadn't been out of prison, 5 full days. And he was like, yo, you got to come speak at this event that was being organized by All of Us and None of Us. So, that was 10 years ago, so that's how deeply entrenched, that the work of All of Us and None of Us is, and how long, we've all been fighting for justice. So, shout out to Dorsey and that team over there.
Absolutely. So another question though, before the senator jumps on, hopefully she'll be on shortly.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. I see behind the dreads, Redeemed Soul. Tell us a little bit, like move your mic so everybody can see Redeemed Soul. I know a little bit about it, but the audience doesn't. So tell us a little bit about Redeemed Soul, so people can plug in and check that out.
Yeah, when I stepped down from my position at ARC, one of the things for me was like just being thoughtful about self-care and about my creative life. I love to create. I'm a writer and producer, and I knew that I wanted to move into a different phase of my life. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but like, I've never had dreams of like doing activist work technically. I always knew that I would use my voice in whatever way I could, but my dream in prison was to be a writer. And that's what, fed my soul, and it feeds my soul to this day. But this work was calling me in various different ways, and I got out, and I just dived in and was able to use my voice in whatever way possible. But I knew when I exited ARC, that wasn't going to be the last of my work in this space. And what I wanted to do was create a platform that just points to all of the incredible work and incredible people I've met along this journey, so that people who follow my personal work can actually support. And so we came up with Redeemed Soul because I believe that redemption is a journey that requires us taking the steps, but it also allows people to walk in our shoes by seeing our work. And so we created that platform to, get some support around, these orgs. And I can honestly say we haven't put a ton of work into it just because of COVID. Haven't been able to move about the country, and largely because I have to finish up this book. I got some writing responsibilities, but it's near and dear to my heart. These organizations, whenever I can support, I'm always going to be up for doing that, man. So I'm super excited. But this particular sweat hood is from a different part of my personal brand, and we're building this out. This is just like one of the testers. We're getting all the colors palettes right, but I will be launching a t-shirt line that reflects my personal views and brands and things that I care about.
I appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
So I was just told that the senator is having, they're trying to figure out some technical difficulties in terms of joining Zoom. So we'll hang out a little bit longer. I want to share, we have some, I won't tell you, I'll put it on air, but we can definitely say off air, now that Michael Mendoza has joined us, we will be doing some national work. In fact, we are already zeroing in on what we're gonna do, but it's gonna be national, it's gonna be relevant, it's gonna have everything to do with criminal justice reform, but understanding how it applies racially, and it's going to also be focused on our youth, which
I have to actually hop because I got another call I have to jump on. So sorry,
Okay.
I got a dip. I forgot I had a hard stop.
Okay, I'm gonna have to let you go. So I guess I just entertain. I might just freestyle. You never know.
I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions, man. Ask Sam a bunch of questions. I'm sorry I got a dip on y'all, but I got another call that I'm late for.
Okay. So,
all right,
okay. Thank you. Appreciate you for joining, brother.
Anytime.
Continue to do your work, and we'll invite you again at a later date.
All right, for sure. All right, peace, y'all.
All right, peace. So what I'll do for now, as we are literally waiting for the senator to join, is go a little bit further on just talking about some of the victories. Yes, ARC did support Prop 25, and it did not pass, but we will continue to work on bail reform. Prop 20 demonstrates that California does want to continue with rehabilitative programming inside. And Prop 17, I believe, speaks volumes to people believing that there should be equality across the board. Measure J was amazing. So that's going to completely change how Los Angeles is. And it looks, here we have our next superhero, the one and only Senator Holly Mitchell, also a supervisor-elect for the 2nd District of Los Angeles County. Congratulations. One of my personal heroes. Want to welcome you. I know you're limited on time, and we appreciate you joining us. Just want to ask you, how are you feeling this afternoon?
Overwhelmed. Really thrilled to hear the news just moments ago, I guess now, that Mr. Gascon is indeed officially our district attorney-elect. Between that, the passage of Measure J, I am clear that this was a sea change in the culture of LA County and the state in some instances. And so I feel good about that. I'm looking forward to our collective ability to do good work on behalf of our communities.
Absolutely. And so we've worked with you. So excited to have you in Los Angeles, the city of my home, where I was born and raised, went away for vacation for a while. So if you see on the screen, LA County makes history with the all-female board of supervisors. Powerhouse. Let's change the world by demonstrating what we can do in Los Angeles.
And I think, as you well know, with LA County, I don't have to give you or anybody from ARC the statistics. You all know LA County has the largest jail system. So it will be a fascinating dynamic. This notion of an all-female board, majority progressive in terms of our politics. The work the board has done in the last year to 18 months, encouraged in large part by you, ARC, and all of the amazing stakeholder groups. You all have done an amazing job in terms of really kind of forcing the conversation and forcing the issue. It's been powerful to see, organizations led by systems touched community members step up in a powerful way to the policymaking arena and having a major influence on the outcome of policy. So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to continue our work in again, the county and city that I grew up in, and making it better. The other thing that I'm really, really happy about is it looks like, well, first, let me back up. we got word that our other superhero, our sister, Assemblywoman Kamlager Dove, announced her candidacy for the Senate seat. And so looking forward to being able to continue our state work there. So I announced that a little while ago. You're getting a whole bunch, if you see the chat, you're getting all kinds of like congratulations.
Oh, okay. Let me put my glasses on so I can read them. Okay, wonderful.
Okay. And what I want to ask you too, during this huge election, this momentous election, both in the state now, it looks like the leadership of our country will change, and we will have the first Black woman vice president. Again, power. Talk about power. Like, what gives you the most hope as we're rolling into this new year coming?
I have never lost hope. I have to remain hopeful to wage the kind of battles I've waged for the past 10 years in elected office. When it was, back at a time when it was few and far between that we could find votes on the floor of either house or people to support this vision that we all now embrace in totality. And there's more of us, if you will. And so I've never lost hope. When I get letters from men and women who are still inside, who talk about their daily struggles and the fact that they haven't lost hope, how can I afford to lose hope when they haven't, right? And so, every new day gives me hope. This new moment in time that we find ourselves in right now gives me hope in terms of the district attorney's election, Measure J, what's going to happen on the national front. And so, with hope is only as useful as it is aligned with work and action. And so our hope has to fuel our action and fuel, our forward movement. And so I'm ready. I'm ready to continue to solve these very complex, sticky issues that confront LA County. We're going to celebrate today briefly, and tomorrow we roll up our sleeves and get back at it. And so I'm ready.
That's right. And know that, as always, we stand shoulder to shoulder with you in this fight to make our system, our state, and our country more equitable. And so I just want you to know that, like, whenever you call upon us, we're there. I'm curious, for your tenure in the Board of Supervisors, what are you looking most forward to?
Oh, that's hard to say. Like, people ask me, what are you most proud of in terms of what you accomplished in the legislature? That's always hard because, my answer used to be whatever the next big fight is, the next big bill. We just did kind of a 10-year retrospective. My staff, my ledge director, my comms director sent out an e-blast where they culled through and, really in one place captured all 90 bills that I've carried that have become law. So that was nice to look back and see and be reminded of and be reminded of some of those early fights and reminded of some of those blows I took and some of those blows I gave. I don't know. I think that the work is going to be very tough these coming years, navigating our way through and out of a public health and economic pandemic. I think that we're going to have to keep our foot on the accelerator in terms of bringing forward humane solutions for our family, friends, and neighbors who are unhoused. I think we're going to have to keep our foot on the accelerator to make sure that our family, friends, and neighbors who are inside are getting the resources and support they need. So upon their release, we can get to a recidivism rate that is, just negligible. It's so small. Those are the kind of big dreams and aspirations I have. That I look forward to making it happen.
So thank you. And again, I just want to tell you, and again, I'll take this, and if my audience doesn't approve, I think I speak for all of us. We're thankful to have you in Los Angeles. We're thankful for the work that you've done during the 10 years that you've been in the state legislature. Like, it's amazing. And we look forward to continuing to make our system, our county, and our state better. I want to be mindful and respectful of your time. I know you have a lot that you're doing, and want to give you an opportunity. Anything you want to say to our audience before we close out? And again, just want to tell you thank you. Another superhero that joined our show today. Thank you for being here and being able to talk to our audience.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate the opportunity. I just think that we all have to continue to be clear, work collaboratively, and not take our foot off the accelerator. It's too much work that needs to be done. You know, our community has been disproportionately impacted by COVID. Our community, including our brothers and sisters who are locked up, and making sure that we stand up government systems that honor them, respect them, and serve them in a humane way. That's the goal that we share. I am moving from one position to another, but know that my goals have not changed. And so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to all the shout outs in the chat. Yes, South Los, I represent every day. I appreciate you all. And thank you so much, Sam. We'll continue to work together.
Absolutely. You take care. Stay safe. God bless, and looking forward to the work we'll do together.
Thank you. Same to you and everybody. Everybody wear your mask. Be safe.
Be mask.
Take it easy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So long. So as a closing, I just like my closing thoughts are this. United, there's not much we can't do. As advocates with our elected officials and being able to change the system, but we have to work together, be willing to, in some instances, agree to disagree, and still be able to communicate with one another, still be able to work together for those things that we can agree on. So I want to thank you all for joining us this week. We will continue to lift the voice of people that are incarcerated and people that have come home from incarceration. And we'll continue to fight to make our system better. Everyone, please stay safe. God bless, and see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.